international affairs expert, joining us from Singapore. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. This sort of standoff between the United States and Venezuela is continuing to escalate. We're seeing Trump now confirming that he's authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations. Maduro has been alleging that the U.S. administration under Donald Trump is looking at carrying out a regime change operation in the country as well. What do you make of all of that which is transpiring over there? How do you think Caracas would respond?
The U.S.-Venezuela relations have been very severely disrupted. U.S. has started to target some of the vessels transporting contraband to the United States. It is very likely that the escalation will continue to a point where U.S. may even intervene militarily. What is important to understand is that the U.S. wants a regime change in Venezuela. And the very fact that President Trump has openly stated that he has authorized the CIA to do so demonstrates that the relations will continue to deteriorate in the coming weeks and coming months.
So requesting you to stay on with us, we're tracking some further updates in this particular story. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has now called on his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump to refrain from carrying out, as he's put it, CIA coups as the military tensions between the two nations continues to escalate. Listen in.
No al cambio de régimen que nos recuerda tanto a las fallidas guerras eternas de Afganistán, Irak, Libia y pare usted de contar. No a los golpes de Estado dados por la CIA, que nos recuerda tanto a los 30.000 desaparecidos por la CIA en los golpes de Estado contra Argentina, al golpe de Estado de Pinochet y los 5.000 jóvenes asesinados y desaparecidos. ¿Hasta cuándo golpes de Estado en la CIA? América Latina no los quiere, no los necesita y los repudia. Así que la paz se gana, no tengo ninguna duda. La paz se preserva.
Meanwhile, Colombian President Gustavo Petro has also responded to Trump government's plans to launch CIA operations in neighboring Venezuela, warning of possible consequences for Colombia as well. Take a look.
Yo la verdad no soy muy amigo de las políticas que se agencian en el gobierno actual de Venezuela porque no lo reconocí. No voy allá. Pero yo sé qué puede pasar en Colombia y esa sí es mi responsabilidad si allá caen misiles. O, como anuncian hoy, si empieza por tierra una actividad violenta de agentes de la CIA, dicen, o de mariners, o como ya sabemos, de misiles sobre la población civil desarmada, sea de la cadena del narcotráfico o no sea, porque está contraviniendo la resolución de la Comisión de Derechos Humanos de Naciones Unidas, que aprobó la resolución colombiana por unanimidad.
Still with us on the broadcast is Professor Rohan Gunaratna. Interesting statements coming in from Nicolas Maduro, who is definitely not recognized by Washington as the legitimate president of Venezuela. But we've also heard Colombian President Gustavo Petro responding to Trump's latest statement. He has stated that the consequences could spill over to Colombia as well. That's not all. We've also recently seen Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum deciding to not attend the upcoming Summit of the Americas in the Dominican Republic. She's expressed her discontent with the exclusion of Venezuela from this summit. In your assessment, are Central and Latin American nations now viewing Trump's statements and the actions of the U.S. military in the Caribbean as an overreach?
The Central and South American governments are very worried. You can see from the statements given by the heads of government or heads of state of South and Central America that they are very concerned about what Trump said. But they also must understand the reality, that is the United States wants to get rid of the current regime in Venezuela, and it is very likely that President Trump will do it. And I think that what can be done at this point is for there to be an effort to reduce the tension between Venezuela and the United States. But this will require some out-of-the-box thinking and ability to convince President Trump that the government can remain in power in Venezuela and that they will make certain amends, because the Americans are also very worried about the movement of vessels carrying contraband from Venezuela to the United States.
And you've mentioned that the US is seeking to carry out a regime change. What does the US seek to gain? Trump says that he's looking at curbing the shipment of drugs, but does it also have to do with the large swath of oil fields and the oil reserves that Venezuela has?
Certainly he is very interested, President Trump is very interested in the resources of Venezuela, and that may be one of the drivers for this decision. But the US has a very long history, a doctrine called the Monroe Doctrine, that is the neighboring countries should toe a foreign policy that is aligned to US interests. Venezuela has been very close to other countries that are inimical or perceived as inimical to US interests. And that is why President Trump is moving in that direction.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other updates. US President Donald Trump has now stated that he would consider removing the 2026 World Cup matches from cities that his administration has safety concerns with. Trump's comments have come after he criticized Boston's local government on its record of public safety. He's also praised the results of Operation Summer Heat, a law enforcement operation aimed at tackling violent crime across the United States. Listen in to what he said.
Well, Boston has a bad mayor who at least is a reasonable IQ person. You know, most of them are low IQ. But, and they're so bad. I mean, what's going on in Chicago is just, you'd think the guy would say, hey, look, we have a problem, Mr. President. Could you come in and straighten it out? We could have that done in a month if we had their cooperation. It's going to be done anyway, but we could have it done in a month. Yeah, Boston, she's got 4 areas that are, wrong. And, somebody said, would we think about taking the World Cup away from Boston if they don't straighten it out? And the answer is yes. We have the right to do that with FIFA. So if we think that LA is going to be bad, or we think that applies a little bit to the Olympics too, but we'll talk about FIFA first. FIFA is very hot. If we think there's any reason that, whether it's Boston or anywhere else, that they're not doing their job, we're going to take those World Cup games and move them someplace else. Today we're announcing the results of a sweeping law enforcement effort known as Operation.
Meanwhile, federal agents have deployed tear gas in Chicago's southeast side following a car chase and crash involving a Customs and Border Protection agent. Now, hundreds of community members and even local police were on hand when the gas was deployed, and at least 3 people were detained. And in response, advocates have canvassed the neighborhood, speaking directly to residents and businesses about the incident. Take a look.
We are reaching out to the homes and also the businesses to let them know that they have rights. We all have rights, regardless of whether we have status or not. And we want them to also be able to help us by recording any illegal detainments that happen or any violent altercations that are initiated by ICE, because we want to have them on video to show the world the reality, the truth. The truth here is that we are peaceful people in this community. We are not the ones causing this violence, and we want them to see that. We want them to know. It's racism, and that's the bottom line. It's racism, and that's the way that I see it. That's the way I've seen it all the time. Because even when you try to show them facts, they don't want to believe it. They don't want to see it. Because why? Because I think that they're being just all of this is just being a response to them holding in all this anger for so many years because they don't accept other people because of the color, because of the culture, and this is just another way that they're targeting now, and they're kind of justifying it by saying, oh, we're the violent ones, the community are the violent ones. Well, we know that's not true. I live in this community, and I know that.
Still with us on the broadcast is Professor Rohan Gunaratne. Interesting developments coming in, interesting statements from Donald Trump, who's now stated that he could in fact shift the venue of some of the 2026 FIFA World Cup matches away from democratic-ruled cities. He cited the law and order situation. Could this then be challenged in the courts?
Certainly it can be. It is a very political matter, but of course there are some security concerns. I believe that the security concerns can be fixed by strengthening law enforcement capabilities. But at this point, it appears to everyone that it is a political decision that has been made. And of course, there is very significant concern throughout the United States on this decision of President Trump.
Indeed, and what would then be the economic impact of shifting the venues in itself? And how would this then impact the GDP of certain political states? It could then most likely boost the Republican states' GDP as well.
You are absolutely correct, Pia. So this can cause significant disruption. And I hope that there will be greater debate and discussion, and people will be able to convince President Trump that he should make a political decision, not a political one.
Indeed, as you pointed out, this is an international event, and the United States will be hosting an event from where people across the country, across the world, I beg your pardon, will come to participate in the World Cup. There'll be people who will be traveling from across the world to watch these matches as well, bringing in a considerable amount of money. But is this decision then a bid by Donald Trump to consolidate his MAGA vote base, and would it really fare well down the line?
President Trump is re-centralizing his political authority and political power. And this can certainly be considered as one of those decisions. It is not a matter of deep security concern. It is a political decision, and I think that there will be significant debate within the United States on President Trump's decision.
All right, sir, with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus away from the United States of America towards Mexico. Now, in eastern Mexico, massive piles of debris and thick mud are complicating rescue operations 5 days after floods killed at least 66 people. Now, authorities are scrambling to reach the hardest hit areas, with 75 people still reported to be missing. In Costa Rica, overflowing rivers have trapped entire families among mud and rubble. Meanwhile, the rescue and aid teams have been slow to arrive. Streets have been blanketed in thick sludge, with personal belongings buried beneath the mess. Rescue workers are facing difficulty as they try to reach those who are still stranded. And many residents, meanwhile, are relying on makeshift tools to clear their homes. Listen in to what some of the survivors have said.
No hay ayuda de nada, no hay despensa, no hay ayuda de nada. Se van al fondo hasta atrás, pero también aquí, ahí está la medida hasta donde nos tapó el agua, la primera planta. Estamos fatal, la verdad. Ya apesta el lodo, huele muy.
La ayuda va muy lenta, mija, y también estamos, o sea, hay partes que ya han avanzado, pero aquí nos urge que nos levanten mínimo las cosas. que nos pasen a dejar cubrebocas, que nos pasen a dejar, ¿cómo se llama? Víveres, agua. Sí necesitamos que se apliquen un poquito más, porque al rato vamos a tener el mosco y vamos a tener la epidemia, y va a ser peor.
In Hawao Chinangto town, which was devastated by flooding over the weekend, a family is meanwhile struggling to rebuild their lives. Listen in to what they've said.
Estamos en crisis total. Y pues, ¿qué nos queda? Sino tener el ánimo para trabajar, recoger lo que nos quedó y volver adelante, volver a trabajar y volver a levantar la casa.
Sí ha sido bien difícil porque pues tantos años de esfuerzo, tantos años de trabajo para tener esta casa bonita, para que sea un hogar, para que sea una casa que se sienta acogible, que se sienta bien. En cuestión de minutos se destruye de esta manera.
Shifting focus to news coming in from the Middle East. Israel's Defense Minister Katz has warned that fighting in Gaza will resume if Hamas violates the US brokered ceasefire deal. This follows Hamas returning two hostage bodies, but stating that it cannot recover others without any special equipment. Now, since Monday itself, Hamas has released 20 living hostages in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and has returned the bodies of 7 dead hostages, plus one unverified body as well. Hamas says that it has fulfilled its part but needs more tools and time to find the others. Meanwhile, US officials have emphasized that Hamas still intends to honor its end of the deal. Further on, UN Relief Chief has now urged Israel to open all Gaza crossings to speed aid delivery, which remains slowed by security checks. Now, as part of planning is underway for a US-backed international force to stabilize Gaza with help from Egypt, UAE and Qatar, Trump says that US troops will not be fighting on the ground in Gaza but will coordinate from the region itself. He's added that rebuilding Gaza will be gradual with no forced displacement. Listen in.
Well, they're looking for him. Absolutely. They're looking. So we have the living hostages all back. They returned some more today. It's a gruesome process. I almost hate to talk about it. But they're digging. They're actually digging. There are areas where they're digging and they're finding a lot of bodies. Then they have to separate the bodies. You wouldn't believe this. And some of those bodies have been in there a long time. And some of them are under rubble. They have to remove rubble. But there are graves, and some are in tunnels that died in tunnels that are way down under the earth. And the tunnels are like 3 feet. Can you believe it? 3 feet high. They lived like this for a long period of time. It's a horrible atrocity. At the same time, we, meaning Israel, but I knew everything they were doing pretty much. I knew most of the things they were doing, but they've killed probably 70,000 of these people, Hamas. And I said, it's time now. So we'll see what happens. We'll also see what happens. Your next question is going to be the weapons. We want the weapons to be given up, sacrificed, and they've agreed to do it. Now they have to do it. And if they don't do it,
with us on the broadcast is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former Indian diplomat, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Now, Israel has upheld its end of the deal by transferring 2,000 Palestinian prisoners into the West Bank and Gaza. Hamas, meanwhile, has returned 20 living hostages and the remains of 7 hostages and one other unidentified body. It maintains that it requires tools, sophisticated tools, in order to dig out the other bodies of the hostages and therefore needs time. We've just heard what Donald Trump has had to say as well. In the meantime, Israel has issued a warning that it will resume fighting if the bodies are not handed over. In your assessment, would the United States be able to convince Israel to not escalate, violate the ceasefire, and just hold on a little more, exercise a little more patience?
I think it should be able to, although if you recall, the previous ceasefire earlier this year, was shot, and it resulted in Israel relaunching its offensive. However, the situation this time seemed to be slightly more evolved. There is a 20-point Trump program in place for de-escalation of Gaza, and Israel is committed to it. Now, Hamas may have genuine difficulties. It's not inconceivable that the bodies of the dead Israelis are lying below huge piles of rubble, and they would require uh, large equipment such as excavators, bulldozers, etc., to dig deep and to unearth those bodies. Israel is under pressure from the family members of the remaining 21 hostages whose bodies are yet to be handed over. So part of the reason this is being done is to assuage those family members who have been waiting in agony to do the last rites. Secondly, I think it is to maintain pressure on Hamas and to push them into handing over their weapons. Otherwise, the fight gets resumed. But it may also recoil on Israel because having withdrawn forces from in the first phase, it would have to re-enter that area, and it may not be easy because people have gone back to those areas from where they had fled. So it may rekindle violence, it may rekindle killings and so on. And after the 20-point program has been accepted, the world and international community, particularly the Islamic and Arab world, are in no mood to countenance greater loss of lives and mayhem. Thank you.
Indeed, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Viewers, we're tracking some further developments. US President Donald Trump has claimed that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had assured him that India would cease purchasing oil from Russia. Now, this claim comes after months of Western pressure on India to align with sanctions against Russia due to its ongoing military operations in Ukraine. Listen in.
If India doesn't buy oil, it makes it much easier. And they're not going to buy. They assured me they will, within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia. And they'll go back to Russia after the war's over.
India's Ministry of External Affairs has issued a response. It has stated that India is a significant importer of oil and gas, and it has been India's consistent priority to safeguard the interests of the Indian consumer in a volatile energy scenario. India's import policies are guided entirely by this particular objective. The MEA has further stated that ensuring stable energy prices and secured supplies have been the twin goals of India's energy policy. This includes broad-basing energy sourcing and diversifying as appropriate to meet market conditions. India's MEA spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal has further added that where the United States is concerned, India has for many years sought to expand its energy procurement, and this has steadily progressed in the last decade. The current US administration has shown interest in deepening energy cooperation with India, and discussions are ongoing. Meanwhile, Russia's ambassador to the United Kingdom, Andrei Kelin, has criticized Western media for what he perceives as a biased and selective portrayal of the war in Ukraine. He stated that media outlets, particularly in the UK, highlight only the successes of the Ukrainian army, thereby distorting the overall picture. In related developments, according to Russia's Ministry of Defense, Russian forces have successfully liberated two settlements, Novopavlovska in the Donetsk region and Alexeyevka in the Dnepropetrovsk region in eastern Ukraine over the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Germany has committed to providing Ukraine with an additional military support, pledging a fresh package worth 2 billion euros. Listen in to what German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has had to say.
Germany is supporting Ukraine with around 9 billion euros this year, and we will continue our support at this level on this level. From this amount, we are currently preparing a package worth 2 billion euros. It will contain missile defense systems, state-of-the-art radar technology, and ammunition. We also participate, of course we do, in Pearl, the prioritized Ukraine requirements list with an investment of $500 million. Air defense is at the very core of our support and has been being from the beginning of the war on. We will therefore continue to invest in Ukraine's air defense and counter-drone measures. And with our enduring action on air defense initiatives, we are inviting our partners to support projects in the area of air defense.
All right, viewers, with that, it's a wrap on this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.